Well, next year, voters in Milwaukee County will head to the polls to elect a new sheriff.
Joining us to examine what's at stake in the race for sheriff is WTMJ Radio's John Mercure. Now, whether you love or hate David Clark, right, you will agree that he has made the sheriff's office one of the most controversial political posts in the state. What does his successor have to do next?
You know, the first thing,
get out of the shadows.
That's a very good question. The first thing he has to do is heal. I talked to somebody in the sheriff's department who said even within the agency itself, it's been very polarizing, especially the last 18 months. It's kind of become a litmus test for the sheriff, the outgoing sheriff, David Clark. Are you loyal? That's so important to Sheriff Clark. How loyal are you? And that it's kind of been polarizing. You were either on his team or not on his team. So there are some real issues, but the first thing is that he needs to heal those that work for him, the men and women that work in that department, because it's been a tough environment to work in, because the sheriff is a high-profile guy leading the department, mixed it up a lot. And the men and women that worked underneath him, some of that got on him occasionally.
Sure.
And so a lot of healing needs to take place.
And there are some big issues. We're hearing of a $5 million deficit, where obviously the jail issue, 6 deaths in the last, since April of last year. So someone coming in, are those the big issues confronting them?
I think they are. I think the jail issue is a big one. You know, the interim sheriff, Robert Schmidt, said that he's an agency, the National Corrections Institute, is going to come in and take a fresh look at the jail situation. Most people think that's a good idea. I think a lot of us, were surprised when we heard Schmidt say that there was a $5 million deficit. Another source I talked to just this morning, and I was trying to figure this out, how come we didn't know about this, or where did this come from, this debt, said that he thought a big part of it was basically David Clark was kind of sticking it to Chris Abele, kind of you're not going to tell me what to do. You know?
And that was part of the part of the drama of this job. County executive, the sheriff, Clark, did not get along. So
Sherman Park Gate, you know, remember that deal?
So when we look at who the next sheriff is going to be, how much of that is going to play into it, and people looking for someone that can get along as well?
You know, it's very interesting, because I asked both Ed Flynn and Sheriff Clark about a year ago now, is it important for you two to get along, to lead our community? And they both said it's really not. But if you talk to most people, they believe that to have a civil relationship with the county executive and with the board, even if you don't agree philosophically on things, that it is important to be civil and to have a dialogue. These two guys didn't really even have a dialogue the last year and a half.
But I think it's important what you mentioned at the very beginning, that the next person in charge has to deal with morale and developing a sense of leadership from the inside and from the outside. I think you really got to do a new PR on the sheriff's office.
I think you're right. I think a lot of people think this is a chance for a fresh start, and they need to hit the restart button on what this office has meant, because the last 2 years or so, it's turned into primarily a major political platform, and that has been very polarizing.
All right, you and I talk politics on your show. This is going to be a political appointment. Let's face it. The governor, who's Republican, is going to be looking for someone who can take over the job. Ernell Lucas wants it now and run for it. John Seifert says, I'm not going to seek the appointment. I'm still thinking about running it. But you look at this job currently right now, don't you think the governor's going to want someone on the job now who wants the job?
I do think that, because, you know, this person will serve for a year. This person will be a mini incumbent when it comes to the election in November. They will have, I believe, a mini advantage. Now, the voters will still make their own decision, but there is no doubt there will be a minimum at least advantage, because they will have had the platform for a year and have been in front of the cameras, and I'm doing this, I'm doing that. There will be increased name recognition. So the governor wants that to be his guy or gal.
I agree with you to a point, because while you say that the governor wants to put someone in who wants the job, and it's not a political position, I think, though, there are people who are talking to the governor saying, you've got to do this, where this person either has to be moderate Republican, or maybe you have to make a surprise guess and go Democratic to try to win over Milwaukee County.
There's no doubt that people are talking to the governor, and I think there is that faction that will agree with you, Shannon. I just think he wants to make sure it's someone that, at least at the core level, believes in the things that he believes in, because they will have an advantage. How much of an advantage, we don't know, but 1 year in that office with nobody else wearing that uniform for a year, that's a big deal.
And if that 1 year is just a lame duck, you know, how much can you get done?
That's right.
So a lot to think about as we move forward. John, thanks very much for coming in.